This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with a very, very old friend of Good Food Revolutions, Erica Crawford from Loveblock, Marlborough, New Zealand. How are you today, Erica?
I'm really well, thanks, Jamie. Beautiful, crispy, late autumn morning here in New Zealand.
Fantastic. Now, just to cut to the chase, how has the ongoing pandemic impacted you over in New Zealand?
Well, it's been initially, it was probably one of the most stressful week or two that we probably have had in our time in the wine industry, which is, it spans what, 25 years or so. So two things. I had just been to the US and arrived about 24 hours after the Prime Minister introduced the self-isolation for
Yeah,
arrivals.
yeah,
I've been in this house for 8 weeks. Anyway, a week and a half later, we went into full lockdown, and New Zealand had a really hard lockdown. Not as hard as South Africa, but pretty
yeah,
hard.
yeah.
So we had 48 hours. We just started the vintage here, and that was on about the 25th of March, something like that.
Yep.
So we had 48 hours to gain status as an essential business for wine. We didn't have that. Imagine you had to roll up everything and leave the grapes on the vine. But it's an industry that contributes $2 billion in export revenue to the government. So I think that probably had a little bit to do with it. And then we had to implement, probably a little booklet of rules like that from Ministry of Primary Enterprises, both in the vineyard and in the winery. So as you can imagine, that was pretty stressful. So for instance, as you know, there are lots of itinerant crews there working in the winery and the vineyard. Let's look at the vineyard first. So in terms of hand picking, there were very strict rules in place, the distancing, how they could do it, what they could do. These are usually run by gangs. And of course, things go slower then. So we made the decision to go more machine harvest this year. It's safer, and just the time that they would never have gone through the whole valley if they had to service everybody's.
I understand. Yeah.
So we went to more machine harvesting. I think we only handpicked about 3 hectares.
All right.
So that's one thing we did, and then you had to see that in terms of not only the picking of the grapes, but of course there's also the lifting of the nets. There's also things like some general farm work still had to continue. So there was all of that, but we nailed that pretty well. The harvesters came in, and obviously there was the harvester come and it drops the load in the gondola, and they had to keep their distance. And one of the things that it forced the truckies to do is to go online, which a lot of that hadn't. Some truckies didn't have mobiles, so because usually you have a weigh, you have a weigh bill at how much it weighed at the gondola, and then again at the hopper at the winery. So that was that forced all of us into that. At the winery, obviously, a lot of wineries have homes in which they put the overseas workers. So day, night shift, they all stay in the same house. So usually a happy international young crew. Of course, we helped a winery, Tohu, where our wines are made. Tohu is...
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
So we took their night shift, I think, into our wool shed. So that's used now as the smoker, the tea room, the office, the showers, everything for the farm workers. So we cleared out and went to the Eros Vineyard smoker, and 5 of these youngsters moved into what really was an old sheep shearing shed. So we still have bunk beds, and they're good showers. So it's nice accommodations, but they had to separate day and night shift, because imagine if someone from the day shift gets it, it'll go through the entire...
Yes, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I've heard this from other producers around the world. You said they have a smoker or smoke...
Smoker is what they call a tea room,
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the sort of Australia, New Zealand colloquial for tea room.
Right. Excuse my ignorance there.
Yeah.
So how did it impact your business orders-wise internationally?
Well, because Lovelock's a brand that's majority of our wine is sold into the on-trade, so into
Yes.
restaurants. The US is our biggest market, and you know that's mayhem over there. So yeah, we've taken a pretty big hit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But Canada, Ontario is saving the day with its private sales. So we're very proud of, you know, my favorite market.
Okay, good. Now, I have to say, I've always been I'm not sure. I think we spoke about this before, and I think we were aligned. But I've always been a great fan of your leader, Jacinda Ardern. How do you feel she's been dealing with the ongoing pandemic?
Well, you know, she of course has had a lot of practice in crisis management.
I wasn't aware of that. So,
Well, first we had the Christchurch shooting where 59 people died, where the, you know, the mosque shootings. So, and that's where she really showed her empathy, and she's a brilliant leader in these times. And then the White Island explosion, the volcano explosion, where I think about 22 people have died by now.
oh yes,
So
yeah, I do remember, yeah.
for a small country, it's had its share. So she's really good in these conditions. So and she's calm and she's concise, and the information is very clear. And she's kind, you know. I think that's one thing that that people have really adopted from her.
Yeah,
I think so. We were in hard lockdown for about 5 weeks,
right.
and that meant we could probably similar to Ontario. We could only go to the grocery, to the chemist, and to the corner shop to buy milk and bread, sort of thing.
Just for
And
the
you could go.
record, Erica, our lockdown is not really like that. It's not quite as severe as that. You're advised that you're only supposed to go out for essential things, but that is not mandated. That's not the law, and people are not being stopped by the authorities or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I was in Toronto on last week and saw the parks were full of people. Some not social distancing. Do you have COVIDiots in New Zealand too?
We have COVID yet, yes. I think people are pretty good in the lockdown, what we call phase 4, which is the hard lockdown.
Right.
Because I think Kiwis are generally, like Canadians, are generally compliant,
Right.
and really nailed that virus on the head. And now we're in what we call phase 3, where we can actually get takeouts, which is a major for us. Imagine I really was doing my own cooking. And just the planning it takes, you know, to know what you're going to cook. Because I still have a day job, and you get up from your desk at 5, 6, and then you've got to figure out what you're going to cook for two young men and a grumpy grown up.
Right. Okay.
It's taken a lot of planning, and I'm overcooking. So yeah, I'm ready for restaurants. So we can now do takeouts and general online sales of whatever. So as long as it's non-contact. And hopefully next week we'll be moving to phase 2, which is the new normal, I suppose, where you can go back to your office as long as you social distance by 2 meters, and kids are starting to go back to school. Last weekend was our first weekend in phase 3, and people did go stupid. Yes, they treated it like a, you know, it was just life as normal. People having parties, but you know, it's wearing a little thin. And people are starting to moan about the economy and you know, like the same thing I think we see in all other countries. We need to start opening up, because New Zealand's a small economy, and it's going to hurt.
But then I think because of your severe lockdown and the closure of the borders, you are in a situation that would allow for the easing of these lockdown measures. Whereas in Canada, we haven't been that severe with our border shutting, and we haven't been all that severe with our lockdown. So therefore, the mitigation has been much more loosey-goosey, shall we say. So we're talking about easing up the lockdown somewhere down the line. But I don't think we're really in a position to do it like yourselves.
Well, I think probably Australia has got, for me, the best model, where their lockdown wasn't as severe. People could still go and grab a takeout coffee and takeouts, and the movement wasn't as restricted. Yet they got on top of the virus. You know, we've got about the same percent, you know, per 1,000 people, the same amount of people the presidents, the incidence is about the same here in Australia.
Yeah.
But I think economically we're going to suffer a little bit more. So they probably got it right. But you just don't know. These leaders had to take decisions that no one had ever had to take before. And how the hell are you going to know what's going to happen in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? So bit of a gamble for everyone.
So I have a question for you. Why do you feel that female leaders, women leaders, have done a damn better job than most of the male leaders all over the world? So I'm talking about your Jacinda Ardern, who I think is, as I said, amazing. Angela Merkel, Fredriksson from, where is she from again? Denmark. And then the Finnish Prime Minister as well, that's Sanna Marin. And they seem to have done a fantastic, I'm missing out the Taiwanese president as well, Tsai Ing-wen. And it appears that when women have been managing this pandemic, they seem to have done a much better job. Any thoughts on that?
Well, you do miss out the Belgium or the Flemish Prime Minister who made a total cock-up of.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't selected facts. That was just because I didn't know about it. So
yeah, I will tell you something. My first boss told me. I worked for a German diagnostics company in my first job in New Zealand, and he employed a lot of women. It's really technical work, you know.
Mm.
I asked him one day why, and he said it's because women tend to do more what's right for the business and what's right for the brands as opposed to what's right for their careers.
Right. Okay.
And I think maybe we see less political play. I don't know. I don't want to put my reputation on that. Maybe we see less political play and more for the greater good.
Right. Right. I can see that. I can see that definitely.
And I think the other side of the equation is perhaps the US, where it's all about politics, isn't it?
Yeah, and that, I think, unfortunately, it worries me. Like in worrying times like these, when we have a crisis, there's no time for partisan politics. We all have to work together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem in a number of countries right now, where things are being done for political reasons as opposed for the greater good of the country.
Yeah, I think that possibly New Zealand, Australia, Canada. I don't know what's going on in the UK. You know, we do tend to do that.
We don't want to speak about that.
Under crisis.
That's not a good situation right now, Erica. So how do you see a way out of this? Because you were talking about, restaurants, coffee shops opening up. The question that I've been thinking about and speaking about with so many of my friends in the industry, how are restaurants going to exist in this new normal before we have any kind of vaccine? Because to social distance in a restaurant means,
takes all the fun out of it.
Well, not only that, it takes all of any kind of financial reasons for being in the restaurant business out of the window. I mean, the margins are already absolutely tiny. Yeah. If you have to social distance your square footage within or square meterage in the restaurant, you either raise your prices by four times, and then also who will want to go and dine in a restaurant again after all of this?
So what the industry magazines and the people in the know are saying that they estimate that 30% of restaurants will not reopen. They'll just close, period, bang. And then for the first period, they'll operate at 25% capacity and then a little bit more.
Okay.
So in New Zealand, Prime Minister Ardern has also just announced yesterday that it's going to be terrible. That you've got to have one server per table. So if you're a smaller restaurant, it's probably not that difficult. But imagine a bigger restaurant. If you have 50 tables, you usually would have, say, 5 tables to a server. Now you're going to have 30 servers. It's just not going to be viable. So I don't know what restaurants are going to do.
Right. I mean, I spoke with a friend of mine from the UK in an interview like this. She's a journalist, a food and travel journalist. And we were speaking about the same topic, And we both agreed that perhaps we didn't realize we were living in a golden age, both for travel, but also
Yeah.
for just social interaction and the like. So until we do have some kind of cure for this thing that is in our midst, our lives are going to be forever changed.
Yes, gosh, we have been lucky, but I think economies like New York depends on so many people squashed in that small
Yeah,
space,
yeah.
and God knows
That's
what's going to happen there.
that's what makes New York so amazing and so exciting.
Exactly, the
And
bottom
that's what
grind.
makes London so exciting and fantastic.
Exactly, the
But
bottom grind. But I think, I mean, obviously in places like New Zealand, Canada, we have a bit more space, and
yeah,
people are naturally a little bit more guarded about their personal space, aren't they? So, but yeah, I foresee, and it's so if a restaurant goes down, it's the food suppliers that suffer, and obviously the beverage alcohol suppliers. So it's a whole chain effect. So what we've done in the US mainly, it's the biggest market, right? Just try to pivot a little bit more into the off trade, but you can't just do it overnight, and of course everybody wants to do the same thing. So yeah, we're just going to have to bite the bullet and work through it. I think it very much depends on how you go into the crisis, what your P&L and balance sheet look like,
of course. And you're good at all that stuff.
and your inventory. So yeah, I think we'll start seeing the real effects of this thing 3 months down the track in our industry. Because right now we're also focused on getting the wine through the ferments and in the bottle.
So on a brighter note, what do you miss most about life from life pre-COVID-19? And what are you looking forward to the most? Probably the same thing, to be freed up from some kind of easing of the lockdown.
Oh, definitely people, as I said, yeah. Whilst you sort of go to the grocery, you're only outside of what we call your bubble, your household.
Yeah.
The conversation is basically, the checkout person at the grocery. But what some things have happened. So the neighborhoods, because our streets have been like pedestrian walkways, people are really out walking, and so we got to know a lot more of our neighbors and the people around in our area. So hopefully we'll be able to maintain some of that. So that's some of the good things that come out of it. My cooking skills have definitely improved.
I thought you were quite good in the kitchen. Did you not tell me
Uh,
you were already quite good?
well, no, I sort of cooked a whole bunch of different things,
Okay.
Ottolenghi is my number one man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But what I really, really miss, Jamie, I miss people.
Right.
I want to sit there with my friends and laugh through the same air. It's okay doing Zooms and doing Zoom dinners, but it's just not the same.
No, I agree with you. There's something. I did a wine seminar yesterday. It was a great wine seminar. Austrian wines. I'm actually having an Austrian right now from that seminar, and I was sent the wines, and it was
my
very
morning coffee.
well. It's I'm at 6:30 right now, but it was very good, and it was with some of my peers were presenting it, and I could taste the wines along with them. But there's something about being across a table with someone. I'm not sure if it's a pheromonal thing or if it's I think I'm quite a tactile person, so I like to be around people, and I will grab someone on the arm, or
Yeah, me too. I'm a bit like that.
that's just me. But is that I just want to get back to that normal because it's so important for me.
Yeah, I think humans are pack animals.
Yeah.
Aren't we, essentially?
Yeah.
And we need other humans in our little tribes and in our packs. Yeah, and I miss my daughters in Sydney, and I really miss her. Don't know when we're going to be able to fly, but there is talk of an Australia-New Zealand bubble.
Yes, I read about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that becomes like open borders between the two islands.
It's almost like a kind of safe haven for people within that.
Within that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Erica, thank you for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. If you're open to it, I'd love to check in with you like 2 months down the line. We see where everything is going. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and all the best to people in Canada. I mean, it's tough times. We just have to ride it out, I guess.
Well, you have many fans over here. I have a few people who were quite envious of the fact we were chatting tonight. So take
I wish
care.
I could raise a glass a bit early.
Oh, well, we'll see you in Canada soon, I hope.
Yes, I hope so.
Bye for now.
Bye.